Okay, hi everyone. We are now doing the secretary portion of the presentation. This is Austina Alexis. She is our secretary for Second District. So go on, do your thing. Oops, oops. And you're muted, Austina. There you go. You got it. Oh, Austina, you're muted.
Thank you. My unmute disappeared. So are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So, as a PTA secretary, the biggest question is, what exactly is your job? So I've kind of tried to break it down into some quick, easy chunks, um, as follows. What we're trying to do is make life easy for ourselves, streamline the process. Whatever it is that you're doing for PTA should not be the bulk of your life, should not take over it, should not cause you to stress. So, overview the responsibilities of your PTA secretary is as a required board member, you attend and participate in all meetings, follow all policies and procedures, understand fiduciary responsibilities, and maintain confidentiality. And occasionally, like now, attend a PTA sponsored workshop or travel because it's helpful to your PTA, to um, trainings rather, to your PTA, to yourself, and to your fellow PTA members, officers as well. So we try really hard to get, um, we try really hard to get prepared for our meetings beforehand, even though this is sometimes not seem to be really like it. Be prepared. Um, and assist the president with their agendas and minutes, take minutes at all meetings, post-meeting follow through. That may mean post-meeting texts, emails, whatever it is that you need to get on the same page, and help the treasurer by signing authorizations for payments every so often and maintaining all of your records in a nice, easily accessible way so as to help with future record reviews. So preparing for the meetings are twofold in that you have to prepare for your executive meetings a little differently than you do for your association meetings. Um, but you your meetings for boards are monthly, but associations tend to be a little bit less frequent, depends on your bylaws. And occasionally there's a committee meeting you may be part of, or you may be asked to attend that uh, has need for meeting notes be taken. So be prepared for that. And before the meeting, what you want to try and do is get your um, get your meeting outline prepared with your president or whomever is holding that meeting. Develop the agenda, send out copies of the agenda and supporting documents like links to, budgets and stuff like that ready for the meeting prior to the meeting. And supplies, if it's an in-person meeting, especially, that comes with a lot more stuff like making copies of the agendas to hand out. If someone needs to look at the bylaws, maybe have one on hand. Make a roster of your current membership, a list of unfinished business, paper for ballots, motion slips, office supplies, a myriad number of things that you may need. You kind of get it ready before the meeting because it's kind of important. Then in the meeting, you want to, um, like at this meeting, record your meeting or not, take attendance, verify quorum because most meetings can only be held if they meet quorum. And some approvals of like voting for on different items in your meeting may require a quorum, so you need to do that. Present minutes for approval, take minutes, count votes, be a voting member of the board. So when voting time comes up, make sure you take a moment to raise your hand, which you may forget to do because you're the secretary. Why would you? Um, then the minutes itself, what to include in the minutes. There's a link on this agenda, which we'll share with you at the end, which takes you to a sample that gives you sort of like even words to use during a meeting, or how to do motion and stuff like that. But for this particular meeting, I thought I'd just keep it simple. So synopsis is you want to have the name of your PTA at the top of the meeting notes, the meeting minutes. Indicate what type of meeting it is, what kind of meeting. Is it a board meeting? Is it an association meeting? Is it a committee meeting? The date, the location. Is it online? Is it in person meeting? Start time of your meeting, uh, when it's called to order, um, whether or not your meeting needs quorum. Um, Sometimes some meetings you'll have an attendance list, like we don't usually keep it on, I guess, no, we keep it at all meetings. Keep it at all meetings is helpful just when you're going back. So you keep a meeting list, a running list of all of your meeting attendees. And you can also have someone help you with that because it's kind of hard to do when you're trying to do minutes, especially when it's electronic. So you get like a little roster and you put it on your minutes at the end of the meeting. That's usually helpful. Use a separate paragraph for each subject, like when you approve the minutes, when you summarize reports, when you make a motion, unfinished business, new business, announcements, everything gets in a little paragraph so you can at least get to them quickly. Um, Business items. It gets really out of control sometimes when you're in a meeting. So that's where your agenda comes in handy. Work off the agenda to make sure that everything that you were intending to cover in the meeting gets addressed. Even if it's to say, oh, we didn't get to this, maybe we'll move it to the next meeting, or should we extend the meeting to include it? Make sure you note actions taken, final motions, who made the motion. You write what is done, not really what is said. Make sure to approve your previous meeting minutes because sometimes we forget that that's part of the requirements of all our meetings is to review the meeting you had prior to this one and make sure it's approved. And as Gina said, the meetings go from the last meeting of your board to the next meeting of your board, or the last meeting of your association to the next meeting of your association. So they're different meeting notes to a certain extent. You can summarize the treasurer's report in your meeting notes just to be on the safe side. But if you're lucky and you have a really good treasurer, they will summarize the treasurer's report and their notes for you. So always, like I said, talk to the president, talk to the treasurer, talk to committee leaders to make sure that they are able to provide as much information up front for your meeting before you have to do it. It saves a lot of time and energy. The other thing is results when you have voting for elections, which is only once a year, but it's kind of important that you keep that information with the meeting minutes so that everyone can refer to it when they're asked, oh, who are the candidates and how many votes did they get? Again, transparency, just making sure that the transparency thing is going. What you don't want to include in your meeting notes are somebody said blah, 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 blah about somebody else, opinions, judgmental phrasements, motions that are withdrawn because you're just discussing it, separate amendments, which we'll talk about later if anyone has questions about that. Flowery language. I love that. Yeah, you don't have to note someone cursed in a meeting, even though it probably ticked off somebody else. And yeah, then you got into the judgmental phrases and whatever. Um, you don't put detailed reports in there. You can put a link to it if necessary. Transcripts of the meeting, again, not necessary. Discussion of other topics not related to the meeting. Um, Seconds on a motion. If the motion got seconded and then voted on, you don't really need to include it, just to reduce the amount of things that are floating through your meeting as you go. After the meeting, yes, your work is not done with just doing the meeting. After the meeting, you want to, while it's fresh in your mind, um, type up the meetings and provide a draft for review um, to the members of that meeting, be it the uh, board when it's the board, or well, it's mostly always the board because you want to type up a preview, a review. You want to have a review of the meetings before you present it at the next meeting. So it's usually the board who will review it, see if there's anything you might have missed, um, or while you were doing something else, or that they wanted to add or adjust. And then you have to like make these corrections that are approved as amended or whatever in the minutes. So you want to make notes where there are changes that you want to make so that when you go to the next meeting and you ask for a review and approval of those minutes, that they know what they're approving with changes made. Um, Filing the approved minutes and providing a copy to the president and often to the board in general, just so that everybody's clear is kind of a nice thing. And only the group that creates the minutes can approve or change the minutes. So the board meeting minutes are not changed and approved by the association, and vice versa with the board. The association minutes, they have to be approved, even with edits by the association and committees. Binding the minutes, that it was back in the day when we did binders, which we don't quite do anymore. We are sort of required to keep a physical copy, but seems like most places where they don't have the ability to keep a physical copy, an online binder is created that has copies of everything from that year. So it's very handy thing to have on hand. So like I said, no corrections in the meeting minutes. You use red ink, or if you're doing it online, red strike throughs in the original minutes as you took them from the meeting. Circle or edit incorrect words. And again, strike throughs are perfectly fine. You don't have margins on line, but you can write corrections underneath or next to your initial statement. And always remember to put a signature on your or initial on your meeting minutes that says you did it. And I think the never erase or fix and reprint is, again, the part where you indicate all your corrections. So don't forget to collect materials when you're done with a meeting that you do in person. So minutes, agendas, financial reports, budgets, financial reports, reviews, all that stuff that you are going to find at some point in your meeting. You might have copies of. Otherwise, they should be links in your meeting notes and available for transparency purposes. And so they're available to anyone who needs to refer back to them. But again, if you're in person, you want to collect your sign-in sheets, any flyers and handouts, and leave the place tidy as you met it when you got there. After the meeting, you do want to provide copies of the updated and approved minutes to the membership, be it board or general association, summarize, not detailed, and don't post it on a website or print it in a newsletter. I'm not sure why that is, but maybe Tina can answer that later or Karen. But I just know that that's, they tell you to not do that and have it accessible. And almost to the end. Um, Again, as Gina pointed out, our records are the legal permanent records of um, our organization. So please do make sure to leave it in good condition, easily accessible to the next person who takes your seat, and easily comprehensible, because it's really a pain in the butt, as we all know, to do this job. If it's, you have to figure it all out as you go. It's hard enough as it is, even when you don't have to figure it out, for some jobs. So just keep it as if you would hand it to yourself coming into the job. And if you're not sure, go to the CAPTA website, which is the link I have noted here. I should have indicated that it's the CAPTA link. And it gives you much more detail on what you're supposed to do for record retention. The last thing is, does anyone have any questions right now? I know I kind of sped through that, but I really think it's a little easier to answer questions um, than to present on this. So, Karen, is that you who took me offline?
I'm back. Yeah, so there are there any questions? Oh, also one more thing about the minutes. We ha Do you want to mention about how it has to be members if they want to view, sometimes people, parents want to view the minutes, but you need to check to see if they're an actual member.
Right.
Because if they're not a member, they are not allowed to view the minutes. So if
Right.
someone, emails you and says, "Hey, I want to look at the minutes," you need to go into Totem and make sure they are a member. Because if they are not a member, they cannot view the minutes. So
I
that's
think that
something I was
would be
thinking about.
restriction on posting it on the website.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah. So that's just something I thought of.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so
anyway,
usually
any
the issue is
questions?
like, if you're ratifying checks and you're sharing check numbers and bank
Exactly. Yep.
info, it'll get hacked. People can look at stuff, or people will take that information and approach a bank directly trying to do a withdrawal or say that they're an officer. This is why when you go in to do your annual transition of officers and who's signing the checks, you want to show up in person with your ID and have an actual like printed copy saying these are the voted officers and these are the actual members, because a lot of times we don't check, right? Like two important reasons we need to have members validated are one for voting, right, during a PTA meeting, and because everything's on Zoom or hybrid, in the past you'd be able to like see people and know who they were or know that they're a member. But now anyone can join the Zoom, anyone can join a Google Meet or a virtual chat, anyone can say they're a member. And so when you're voting, or when you're asking for minutes and information that's confidential, or if you're voting on the budget, for example, that should, really be restricted to folks who have joined that membership. That is the part of the PTA and the PTSA organization rules. But yeah, I think it's also just sensitivity. Like it's so easy to hack into stuff these days, supposedly, that
For sure.
I know of 3 units who had to redo access to their banks, which is so much work because they got hacked into, and it's all good intentions. You don't realize that you're sharing the minutes. You're like, oh, it's notes. Um, and you are supposed to share them with members, but if it goes to the wrong person or someone with not the best intentions, then unfortunately it becomes
Exactly.
more work for
Yeah.
board officers.
Mhm. Got it.
Any other questions? Go ahead and unmute yourself because we have a nice little group here. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Well, if I can just go back to my slideshow for a minute. Um, there
Yeah.
were some current, I guess, last minute current things to do, last minute suggestions on current things to do at the end.
Austin, are you able to share again, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead. It's like 3 slides to the end.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry.
slideshow. So yeah, um, I did this kind of like Gina did at the end, where it's like tips at the beginning of the term, sort of chat with your president to kind of gauge what their expectation of meetings are going to be like, and how they would like the minutes for both the board and general association to look like an agenda form, and then in minutes form, do they want them to go out as soon as the meeting's over, or just before the next meeting? I mean, they're little things that sort of just make the communication flow a little smoother, instead of you just trying to hit or miss it for a couple of months until you get into a swing. Um, figure out who's keeping attendance. Again, it's one of those things it's harder to do when you're in the meeting. So you want to kind of figure that out before the meeting starts. And as I started at the beginning saying, prepare, get as much of the stuff done as you can ahead of your meeting. Um, uh, so that when you're in the meeting, you don't have as much to do. And review and get your meeting minutes done while the information is still fresh in your mind, so you're not like trying to figure it out a week later. And don't be afraid to ask people, hey, do you remember what happened during this part of the meeting? I seem to have zoned out or whatever. Can you fill in the part you were talking about while I was checked out for a hot second? Um, so those are the tips, and then the resources links are on the next slide. Yeah. So the California State PTA website has job description for secretary with very good details on things that you should do. The toolkit has lovely information on all the stuff that Gina talked about, the forms, the scheduling, the how do you run a PTA, so you can kind of give yourself a little overview as to your role in it and how you might best do that. There's a leadership website, which also gives hints and meeting notes on doing your job. We also, at the district level, have our own 411 Wednesdays, like today, where we will be answering questions and presenting information that we think hopefully will be timely information that can be of use during the school year. And if you have any other questions that regarding secretary work, um, or probably just, fielding questions in general, if you're one of the schools that I work with, secretary at sfpta.org is me. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Astina.
Thanks,
And
Austin.
Kushbu from uh, a new PTA to be formed had a good question in the chat about AI support with note taking. Astina, what's your take on that?
Hmm. I have honestly not tried it, and I think that for the people who have been using it, most people are very satisfied. I think Sarah uses it often, but you do have to um, go through it thoroughly, because you don't want, again, because you do not want personal comments. I mean, you have to strip it down if you're going to use it for for minutes. You do have to strip it down to the bare basics of what's required for the minutes, and
There's
that's
actually on CAPTA, it has something to do with the privacy policies. It explicitly
says.
prohibits the use of AI. It says it. And because, PTA meetings handle, sensitive matters and student data and all audio, video, and AI assisted recording requires consent and violates, the privacy policies.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't. I mean, you can use it, but don't use it exclusively. And you still need to physically take the minutes. But you
Mhm.
can use the AI as like, an edit, if you want to, maybe you've missed something and you can look through and add it in, but you cannot use it exclusively.
Right.
And I think, Karen, a lot of units will many times will record their meetings. So
Right,
that can help instead of using AI. And then just know
right,
that if you record it, you should say you're recording it for your own use, let folks know so they can turn off their cameras. There's no kids on camera
exactly.
while that happens. And sometimes they'll, do it for the main portion part. But again, you want to be careful of like the treasurer information, the bank information that gets shared, or
Exactly.
anything else sensitive or private. But yeah, I think units have tested it out, and in terms of definitely doesn't replace the actual note-taking aspect, right, Austina? That's the main thing, and I think it
Right.
can help with some gaps, or
Exactly.
just in supporting other folks. And also that's the whole point Austina was saying, that when you share the minutes, sometimes you share it with, a lot of times when, for example, when Austina takes a message, she shares it with us right away and says, please edit. So that's the whole point. Like, it's supposed to be a group process to go and edit those notes and fill in the gaps that person may have forgotten or didn't catch, or maybe went off on a tangent on another topic and didn't get to certain topics. So I think it's really important, especially as being new to the role, to know that it's not only on you to make sure that the minutes are complete and accurate. It's a group job from all the board officers. And I know when I was at elementary school, usually my secretary had someone else sitting with them to pay attention and listen to the notes along with them. That kind of helped. That was back in the day when it was solely in-person meetings. So yeah, it's evolved since, right, with Asina, with Zoom meetings. I don't know if it's made it easier or tougher to take notes. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. So any other questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure if I missed this when you guys talked about earlier, but are we allowed to share the notes in our newsletter for parents who did not get a chance to attend the meeting, or missed the meeting, and then they could then read the new notes in the newsletter to know what was discussed? Is that allowed?
Yes, again, except, not the sensitive information like the treasure notes and that kind of stuff. So if you have an editor,
Exactly. I mean, if you want to share it with the general community, you need to take out all the financial part of it because, you know, unless if they are a member of the,
Well, and then I think every parent in our school gets the newsletter, but not every parent is a member. So how would that work in that situation?
oh, that's a good question.
And
Because
um,
I believe every parent is auto subscribe or can subscribe to the newsletter, but not every parent is on the in the PTSA. So, but we want it to be transparent. If we want to be transparent, we want to share information for parents who might miss the meeting because they had other commitments or whatever.
right.
We just want the community to be informed, and maybe when they read the minutes, they were like, "Oh, I might want to get involved in the next fundraising." So, how do you handle a situation like that?
Usually you
so
have your own newsletter. You have a PTA or PTSA newsletter. And that's usually where it goes to. Sorry, Austina, I jumped in front of
I
you.
was going to say similar is that much like the agenda, your agenda is posted to the general population, yeah? And so you can write a post-meeting review summary, much like the agenda, that just indicates what was covered during the meeting, and not indicate names or anything like that, but just the business of what was done during the meeting. And that should be about the size of your agenda.
So basically, I had to create another version for distribution, but not share all the detailed notes.
Right, because it's going out to people who are not also members.
I
So
see.
it's just a summary of what happened at the meeting without the details.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be useful though, to be honest, right? Like, because you're not going to provide the details. How, like, if somebody wants to,
But that's the whole point. Then,
They
become a
become a
member
member.
so you know what's happening, that's the reason to join PTA.
I think that's like in the ideal world. I think it's hard sometimes to even get parents to come to these meetings, right? To be a member. Like, I think ideally we want every parent to be in the meeting, to attend the meetings, to get involved, right? But I think there's also a population that are not as involved, and we want to make outreach to them to get them involved, right? So I feel like if we're able to share more about what the PTSA is doing, it might entice people to become more involved. And to be honest, it's actually, I mean, this is a volunteer job, right? So, you know, I would love for us to have a PTSA newsletter, but even just filling the positions sometimes every year, it's challenging. It's hard to get people to step out to join the board. You know,
Yeah,
Well,
Kimberly, it sounds like we're all saying the same thing. You definitely want to entice people to join, right? And so you can do a summary of the notes that includes everything you're doing. Like, for example, you mentioned like fundraising. If someone wants to get involved with an event, or maybe you're doing a community event and you need volunteers, right, to hop on so you can get more support from the community, you can share all of that. That's not the confidential stuff we're talking about. We're just talking about the treasury stuff. You can say, "Hi guys, we are going to spend like $5,000 this year on all these community events, but we can't have them without volunteers supporting us so we can make it happen for our kids or something like that." That's a great way to draw in people without, like you said, giving them the pressure to be a member per se, but you do want them to be more involved in your events. So there's the whole point of you being a PTA and PTSA is to support your community and build community connections, right? So that's the number one point of a unit. So I think why not get everyone on board and you can share that information. We're definitely telling you to go for that, right? So we're just saying there's in a minutes and a summary if you're sharing some information. Some people share the slide decks even, but they just take out the links to the sensitive treasure information or the bank information or the check information. So
yeah.
you're welcome to send that, share your information in the
Yeah,
newsletter.
fundraising and all that, or events at the school. I mean, definitely share that.
Yeah,
That's
like yeah,
definitely
watch.
what you need, from parents. We're just saying the financial part. Take that out.
Oh
Because,
yeah. Well, we weren't going to include all that in the
yeah,
meeting notes
yeah, no,
anyway. You know, I mean, like we
urge you to
talked about
share
like the sensitivity
everything
to
that's
that.
going on at the
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
That's the whole point. That's so in your newsletter, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if
Okay.
there's one newsletter that the principal is helping to share, or if there's one
Hmm.
communication channel and people want to stick with that one, you can just be like, oh, you have our little like PTA or PTSA corner, and this is what's happening, and make that happen every time the newsletter goes out, right? Like that's simply what you're doing and sharing. That's great. And yeah, I think a good way, like you were saying, if you're having a hard time like with board officer roles, a great way to get people involved is to come and volunteer and see what's needed and say, oh, I'm actually really good at this role and I'm really good at organizing things or getting donations from the community for prizes or something like that. When people realize they just have to do one or two tasks, like it becomes a lot easier to bring people on board. We've
Yeah.
all had that experience, trust us, with
Yeah.
bare bones groups or robust groups.
Yeah. Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Of course.
yeah, what I meant when I said summarize it is just basically if you don't have space, like you're saying to do a newsletter or something like that, but you just want to make sure that that goes out, much like you put out the agenda, whatever form you put out the agenda in, just put a summary of what happened at the meeting. And, you can put it next to the agenda so they can see where you started and where you ended, what things you discussed, and you just don't put the details in. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
And yeah, and Kimberly, definitely feel free to reach out to us one-on-one so we can support your group. I forgot. I know you told us where you're from, but I'm looking through the chat and it's a long chat. Which unit are you at? Which school do you support?
Washington.
Oh,
Which
okay.
high school? Okay, great.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Our board is all new this year, so that's
Oh,
why we're,
of course.
yeah, we're all new. So just trying to learn the process.
Of course.
Um,
Well,
great.
we're definitely here for you. Reach out
Yes, exactly.
whenever you have a question, just ping us. And go to our website and ping the particular person who has the best chance of answering the question you need. Like if it's the president with a president question, contact
Mhm.
him. If it's a treasurer
Yeah, I
question,
can always direct you. If I know the answer, I'll tell you, but I can always direct you to
if it's,
whoever you
yeah, secretary question or historian question, just
exactly.
contact whoever's on that list with all our emails are listed there.
Okay, cool. Just one other question that's kind of a little bit unrelated. Can a board member serve two roles? Like, for example, can a treasurer also be vice president or a
No.
secretary be vice
Nope.
president? No.
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Please don't do that to yourself. It's
Yeah, that's too much. Exactly. You don't want to do that.
You can definitely be like a committee head and a board member. So let's say, if you're treasurer and you want to be, part of a financial committee, like group, that's different. But you have
Mhm.
other people on it with you. Or if you, have like, and you're the treasurer and you have like a fundraising committee, or if you have like an event committee, right? Like you're doing like a carnival and you want to be part of that. That's separate. But yeah, your as a board officer, your bylaws should be very clear in sharing that information that you should be doing one term, one role at a time.
Got
Um,
it.
And a
Okay.
maximum of 2 terms. You can't serve in the same role for longer than 2 terms. But you can stay on the board, but you can change roles. That's allowed. You can be a treasurer and then you can change it to become a secretary. That's totally allowed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyone else? We still
Well,
got time.
I know that was a bit of a speed through, but it's basically keep track of everything that's going on and use the links to help. So, any, no other questions?
Yeah, if there's no more questions, again, thank you again for coming.
Joining
Really
us.
appreciate it.